I can plant over 100 different varieties of vegetables with this MaterMacc planter. Hey guys, behind me is my 2-row precision MaterMacc planter. You've seen it a lot in our pictures and videos, and I just want to give a shout out to MaterMacc. This planter has changed my planting schedule for the season. It has changed the efficiency of how I operate. It has changed the amount of things I can do with it on a given day. We've planted probably 10 to 15 different seeded crops, anything from a small beet all the way up to a pumpkin seed, which is about this big. This planter is amazing. I can plant any depth I want. I can plant any spacing I want with this, whether it's in row or between rows. I can plant multiple rows at a time. The speed and efficiency of this planter is triple the amount of what I've ever done with before. And the versatility with this is amazing. I can plant anywhere from a no-till ground to a regular cultivated ground to even a 4-inch raised bed with this thing, and a plethora of different seeds. This thing blows my mind every time I go out and plant with it. It's also wicked nerve-wracking because of the amount of adjustments and altercations you can do with it. It's crazy. So it's been a lot of learning this year to kind of hone down the skills on how this thing actually works with all the different variety of crops we're doing. But shout out to MaterMacc, great planter, great design. So this planter has really changed my way of farming or planting in a whole new way. Previously we had planters that were only designed to plant certain things. So I had a corn planter, I had a squash planter, a lot of things I planted by hand, a little Jang push planter to do small seeds with. This planter really took all those machines and combined it into one. Which just makes my life so much easier. It makes the versatility of my operation that much easier. That this planter can plant every different seeded crop that I have on this farm if I wanted to, making my life that much easier. Having one unit to be able to do everything with, learning the adjustments on one machine versus 3 to 4. It just makes life easier. It makes my life more efficient, and I can move faster and quicker with different things. This is also a precision planter, so it's planting, your perfect stands how you want them, versus traditional chain-driven or wheel-driven planters. They skip here and there. Granted, this one probably won't pick up a seed on every hole once in a while, so you don't get that perfect precision, but day and night with the difference in quality and control with this. So it just makes my life that much easier to be able to focus on other aspects and move along forward and more efficiently day after day. Give you a quick overview of all the different things this planter can do. So we're going to start in the front. This is the PTO shaft that spins the vacuum to create the precision planting with the unit. This is the actual vacuum. There's a belt in here that spins with the PTO shaft that creates a vacuum to suck the seed onto a seed plate. Back here is a big fertilizer hopper to put our starter fertilizers in for the different crops we're seeding to give them some nutrition right when they go in the ground. So down here is our Yetter no-till coulter. This is the big thing with this planter, that it's no-till, and what this wavy coulter does is it cuts through the residues in the soil, opening a seed bed for the planter unit behind. This big mounting bar helps to give the planter weight so it can compact through these heavy residues that we're planning to go through, such as rye or other cover crops. So what you're looking at now is the actual planting unit for the MaterMacc planter, and there's a lot of different adjustments we can do right in this small little part. So I'm going to kind of work from the front of it towards the back. So down here is our fertilizer coulter. This cuts a furrow for the fertilizer, 2 inches offset of the actual seed hopper, and this can be adjusted up and down depending on how close you want the fertilizer to your actual seed. If we go up here, this is an actual spring tensioner for the whole planting unit itself. The higher up I move it is for lighter soils or lightly sandy cultivated soils. The farther down I move it is for more clay or heavier soils. So especially when we're doing more no-till, we're going to want to move this farther down to create more tension on the actual unit pressing into the soil. Down here is just a quick brush guard to clear residue away from the seed furrow or seed coulter when it's going through the ground. This right here is a cool little feature that goes up and down, and you can move these units actually up off the ground. So I'm going to explain to you basically the cutting path of this planter from start to finish. So up front, like I talked about before, is our no-till wavy coulter. This is cutting through the heavy residues in the soil. Next we have our fertilizer coulter, which is cutting a furrow to drop the fertilizer next to the seed. The third one in line is our actual seed coulter. So this is cutting a furrow where the no-till coulter was already cutting to drop our seed through. These are compression wheels to help kind of compress the soil around the actual seed to make a nice firm bed. And lastly are the closing wheel coulters to pack the seed and make a nice little mound up where the seed's being planted. So this is the actual seed plate that our seeds are stuck to, and this is the cover that goes over this to hold the seed in place. So the seed sits down here in the hopper, and this hose right here is attached to the vacuum, and when we spin these plates, the seed picks up here and gets sucked by vacuum, comes up to here. This is kind of like a seed remover, I call it. It knocks the excess seed that are getting sucked with the vacuum off, so you're only getting 1 seed per hole. And then when you get down to about here, it covers up the actual hole where the vacuum's seeding, and it drops the seed through the chute down to your coulter and into the soil. This is really cool. You can actually see with this thing little peek holes, so we're able to look through and see the seed that's sticking onto the plate to make sure we're only getting 1 seed per hole. And this adjusts up and down depending on the size of the seed. Back here is our depth control for the actual planter. So if we want to be planting seeds at a 1/2 inch versus 1 inch, we can raise this up or down. And then lastly, our tensioner for the seed closer or seed coverer, if you will. The farther back, the more tension on the actual cover. The farther forward for lighter soils or smaller seed. And back here, this very last piece is to either widen or extend the seed closers. So if you're doing really small seed, you want to have a really small a hill. If you're doing big seeds, a little bigger hill works better. And this is the unit. There's a million different things to adjust on this planter. These units also slide back and forth. If you look over to my right, you can see a unit off the ground versus this unit, which is down on the ground, meaning that I can slide this planter over to the middle. I'm setting it up to plant squash and cucumbers this week. So we'll leave 1 unit up, and then this unit will slide over to the center, and we'll be able to plant 1 row at a time versus 2. And I guess the last big thing, this big yellow hopper up here, this is where our seed sits. This holds quite a bit of seed. Being a small acreage farm, I'm never going to use this quantity, but These are the ones that come with the planter. So this planter, I'd say from the previous planters we've been using, has probably increased my efficiency with the yield and spacings, probably 25 to 30, even maybe 40% more than what I had before, which in result gives us better yields because things are getting seeded at their specific spacing in row and between row. And it's dropping only one seed at a time, where certain things like squash really need that space in between each row, versus if you're dropping 2 seeds per hole, it's going to be a little different yield potential, smaller crop, etc. So this does a phenomenal job at placing seeds exactly where you want them. I can plant over 100 different varieties of vegetables with this one